Welcome to episode 3. In this one, we're going to take a look at my interview section of my multi-agent setup. Now, what this part is for is if I don't have the files that we looked up in episode 2. So this is going to be a bot that is going to interview us. And the way I like to handle my interviews is one question at a time. I don't want to throw a whole bunch of questions at the user because most of the time a user can't handle more than one question at a time. So that's the style I want. We are also going to run into a limitation of Copilot Studio. This interview may take more than 10 turns. And what I mean by a turn is the LLM says something and then I respond. The LLM says something and I respond. So we take turns back and forth. The Copilot Studio out of the box doesn't do more than 10 responses. So an interview like this may take quite a few responses where the agent is trying to get all of the functional requirements, all of the security, all of the non-functional requirements, all the stuff that it needs to create an actual SOW scope. So what we will do here is I am actually going to use an external LLM. Now, I like to use Grok 3. That is my favorite language model at the time. What I don't want to do though is I don't want to take and put my data somewhere else. I don't want to hand that over to XAI. So what the nice thing about Microsoft systems is I can use the Foundry AI, so Microsoft Foundry AI, and deploy my own version of Grok 3 that resides within my tenant. That means my security is applied to it. It's not going to go outside my tenant, so everything remains with me, but I still get the benefit of having this really great language model to use. So I have a deployment in Azure AI Foundry, and we'll go through what that looks like in another episode. But for this one, I'm going to show how do I use Copilot Studio to do this kind of question and answer back and forth. We're also going to use something called a prompt inside of our topic in order to make sure that we know when the conversation has ended, because Copilot Studio is still acting as the orchestrator here. We still have to let it know when we're ready to move on and then what to save at the end. So let's go ahead and go through that and we'll see what you think. Here is my agent, and you can see here this is a completely separate agent from my SOW generator agent. And like I said, I will click these back up together. We'll use A to A, the natural stuff inside of the out-of-the-box stuff inside of Copilot Studio to hook these up. But for now, this is a completely separate agent from the other one. So you see here, I don't really have a whole lot of instructions. This is very out of the box. I don't have any knowledge, no tools, nothing. I'm just setting this up. And what I'm doing is I'm having a topic, and the topic is going to be Grok conversation. So when this loads up, we'll take a look at what does this all look like. So the first thing is going to be the trigger. And the trigger is just, I'm saying, hey, this creates documentation for statements of work. So I need to mention something about a project or something like that. Next, what we have is we've got a variable, and this is going to be this TBL messages is how I am going to manage the conversational context with my external language model. All right, so let's take a look at this real quick, and we will hit that. And what we're going to see here is a formula, right? And so right here, I've got role system, all right? And this is going to be JSON. So you see this is going to be an array or a table in terms of Copilot Studio. You can see here this is named a table. And then I have my system prompt for Grok. So this is how I want it to act, and these are the instructions that I'm giving it to conduct this interview. You can see here that I'm conducting the interview one at a time. I'm never asking more than one question per response unless it's a natural follow-up or clarification, right? So that's kind of the way I want this to go. And then at the end, I'm asking it what's the project background? How do you get to the bottom of this? Ask about non-functional requirements, assumptions, and constraints, things like that. And then at the very end, I want it to come out with a full scope. All right, and that's how I know that it's the end. And then the next part, I have a comma here, and then I have the first user prompt. And the first user prompt is going to start with, let's start the interview. That's telling the LLM, okay, we're beginning your persona. This is my project so far, and I have the activity text. So the activity text is going to be the last message that was entered into Copilot Studio's interface. So that's how we're going to set that up. So if I say, I have a project that we have that is going to add a contact page to a website, it will take that and then it will put that in here. So it's going to say, let's start the interview. This is my project so far. I have a project, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So that's what I start out with. So that's what begins here, right? And then I have a variable that is set to true. Okay. This is my variable continue. So next one I've got here is going to be an HTTP request. So the HTTP request is me sending it to Grok. All right, and my method is post. This is going to be my Foundry AI URL. I'm gonna obscure it for this, but this is what that looks like. And then in my headers and bodies, I'm going to have a header that key is going to be authorization. And then authorization is going to be bearer space and then the API key for Grok. And again, I'm obscuring it for this method. Next, I have the body format, and the body format is very simple, right? I've got my messages, topic messages. So those that table that I'm sending it the whole thing. It's going to come through as JSON for this formula. I give it the max completion tokens, the temperature, the top, or whatever. Now I can get a lot bigger with this, and when I go to production, this is probably going to be, about 4,000 or so tokens. Now I may get into a little bit of trouble here because I don't want to. Another limitation with Copilot Studio is it has a limitation on the payload that it can receive from a third-party source. So right now I'm keeping it kind of small so that we don't run into that problem. If I do run into this problem later on, I'll have to use a function app or something like that that's going to take those larger payloads and break them down. Now, I'll show you how to do that in a much later episode. But for now, we're keeping it small. All right, so it's going to come back then. The response data type is going to come back as a record, and that schema is going to look like this. Now, this schema is nothing more than the schema that is received, the JSON that is received back from Grok, and this is published on the XAI site. So all I did was copy and paste an example, and I put it here. Now, one of the nice things about using Foundry AI is, I'm going to get down into it, but you can see this stuff here: self-harm, protected materials, these kinds of things. This is Microsoft's responsible AI. So this is built right into. This does not come with Grok out of the box. If I were to go to XAI's site, it doesn't have it. But what's nice about this, it does come with Microsoft systems, so I can already build in safeguards into my bot to say, hey, if this comes out as self-harm, or if it's sexual or some other violence, some other kind of thing, I want to flag this person, and then because it's connected into Office 365, I can send that to HR, I can send it to administrator, I can send it to whomever I want. But it enables this safe AI to go forward, and that's built right in. That's something you don't have to pay for. It's part of the Foundry AI set. So this is what we have for our return, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify the items in my list. So sorry, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a message, and the message then is going to be the response that I get back from Grok. And you can see here, the response here is just the first, because it comes back as an array. The choices, the message, and content. So that's what I'm getting here. From there, I'm going to modify items in a list. Here, I'm going to go back to table messages because I have to keep track of everything that I have done. So I want to keep track what the user said, and I want to especially keep track of what the generative model said, because that keeps the context of the conversation. So here I have the role of assistant. The role assistant is what I just sent for the message, right? So that keeps that the message context rolling. So that's what I'm doing here, and then I'm putting in a question, and the question is just a smiley face. Now, what is this? This gives me two things. One, we'll see. I'm essentially going to put myself into a loop here as I ask questions and get answers until I have what I'm looking for. Okay. This gives me a spot to come back to. Now, I put something in here. You don't have to. You can put a space in here or just absolutely nothing here, a string empty, in order for this to kind of roll. It stops right here. It waits for a response from the user. And that's what I'm looking for, because Grok is going to ask a question. It's going to ask follow-up questions, and I want the user to then respond to that, all right, without leaving the topic. If I leave the topic, my variables get reset. So I want to maintain everything in the same kind of message context in the same topic, okay? So that's why this is. And then when we're developing, I like to know where we're at, so I know that if I don't see a smiley face, that means something is wrong. The next thing you see here is I modify the items in a list. Again, I'm putting in what the user has responded, and the user comes from the response into user's entire response from this question, and the question is related to what Grok has asked. The next thing is I have an HTTP request, so now I'm sending that user's response back to Grok. All right, so here it is. And again, it's the same setup as before, exactly the same. I have a authorization bearer, and it's the exact same stuff. It sends it back, and I'm going to get a response. The response, then I just output it again, and then I modify the items in the list. I put in the role assistant. Now, here's where things get fun. I have a prompt, and the prompt is me sending this to another LLM. I'm asking a question here. Let's go ahead and view the model. And this is part of the Power Platform. And it'll load here in a second. There it is. And my instructions here are very, very simple. All right. Your job is to determine if the response, and I give it the Grok response, does not contain a scope for a project. So let's take a look at that. So right now I have as sample data, thank you for outlining the timeline, does not contain a scope for a project. So what this should come out with is true. So let's test that. And this sends it to a GPT-4o model. Now I can, and you see the answer is true. Now I can send this to other things. So you see here an Azure AI Foundry model. So if I wanted to, I could send this to my very same Foundry model that I've got working for my generative model inside of my topic right now. So that is a brand new feature. So that's a cool thing, and we'll take advantage of that later on. All right, so in the meantime, that's what we have. Okay, so when it comes back with something that's going to be a long drawn out scope, this will go ahead and say false, and then we'll exit our loop. And so what this happens is, we're going to confirm closing this out. What happens here is I take the response here, and it's going to go to this condition. So if my response is equal to true, I'm going to go back to this question. Otherwise, I'm just going to exit. Okay? And that's it. That is my topic. And with this, I'm able to use Grok 3 to go ahead and conduct a business analyst style interview, ask all the questions, and then output a very large, complex scope, assumptions, and everything that I need to move forward with the solutions architect. What does that look like? I'll speed it up, send it on to you. Here's where we're at. We got the top level design done. We gathered our file locations. We've created our interview agent with the business analyst persona. Next up, we're going to ingest the files from the locations and generate scope files. Our technical hurdle is how do we get transcripts from Teams meetings, video files that are uploaded to SharePoint, and audio recordings. My next video is going to be on generating scope from the text files. We know we can do that. After that, I'm going to extract the transcript from multimedia files from a SharePoint stream site. And hopefully, my mouth isn't writing checks my butt can't cash. See you next time.